Well, good evening, everyone. We will call this Manvel City Council meeting to order here with the workshop. First item on the workshop is discussion on fiscal year 2026-2027 budget. Council, what we'll do is we'll focus the first half of the workshop just to see if there's any follow-ups or recaps or questions needed from our last council meeting and the presentation given on the general fund. Then what we'll do is we'll jump into the discussion for tonight, which is utility fund, vehicle replacement fund, capital projects fund. I believe staff is going to have some questions for us or look for some guidance from us. We may pause the budget discussion in the workshop. We may have a member from the CIAC here to talk to us about impact fees. So if so, we'll take the workshop time to do that because they will not be able to stay for the regular meeting. And then we'll circle back to the budget in the regular meeting. So we'll just be a little flexible there. But going to recap from our last meeting, I believe Councilman Lands, you wanted to start us off with maybe a few questions or clarifications that you had?
If you don't mind.
Absolutely. You can unmute yourself, sir.
And I will try to go through this as quickly as I can. Part of my questions is related to not necessarily the expenditures of our budget, but just the format or the way we use our funds. So looking at this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rosie and Dan on these things, this is what I've come up with looking over this. But so the general fund for 2025 and 2026, we had a budget of $20,723,548. That was for this year's balance. And then we show an estimated balance for the general fund on September 30th, the last day of this year, budget year, to be $22,230,926, which, correct me if I'm wrong, that's reflecting a surplus of $1,507,000. Okay. And this estimated balance of $22,230,000 is based on departmental spending as shown in each department line's estimate also. It's their estimate, not what they originally allocated.
That is correct.
Okay.
The accurate balance is from June 30th, and then I estimated for the rest of the year.
Okay. Most of the departments have come in under their allocated budget, the three that were over. Those departments that came in under their budget collectively amounted to $1,650,660. So that's funds that were allocated to these departments for the year, but they have not used. If they would have used those funds, our general fund actually would be at $20,580,302, which is a reduction of $143,000 for the year. Now, on these departments, these funds, the way I understand it, it's use it or lose it. If you don't use it, it goes back in the general fund. We start over again next year.
That is correct.
And then we try to, each department tries to sway council on what they need the most.
That is correct.
So does each department manager, director have the authority or the power to use the funds in their department as they see fit up till September the 30th?
For the most part, yes, sir.
With the
funds-
guidelines, of course, that if it's over a certain amount, then we have to go out for bids. If it's
Right,
over,
even you, there's guidelines even for you
Yes,
that
sir.
has
Yes.
to go up, a certain amount. So, but that money is in the departments for, as allocated for the year.
That is correct.
Okay.
And Councilman Lenz, may I add in also that around September, towards the end of the fiscal year, I usually sit down with any directors and any other needs that they need for next year. We try to buy it with this budget at the end of the year.
With the money that they've had left over.
Exactly.
That's a good point. That's kind of where I was going too. That's like, we're scrambling from zero, but there's still money left on the table.
No, Chief is a prime example. We sit down at least 3 times between now and then, and any money that we see that he's going to have left over, he starts buying some of those supplies and those smaller items he needed.
Yeah, Chief is my favorite point of this whole thing. So as a side note, maybe futuristically, we could consider, I don't know if it's even legal or not, but a reserve fund. Let's say a department has $500,000 they didn't use for the year. Instead of just throwing it back into the general fund, can we maybe consider a reserve fund, even if it's 50%? And that fund is in that department for the next year for overages or whatever else. It's just, instead of going back to square one every year. Just a thought, if you can follow me on that.
That is your fund balance. So
The
if-
general fund balance.
Yes.
Yeah,
So if they need to use it, that's when we come to you and say, hey, council, we need to buy X amount of things because whatever happened, and that's when we get your
yeah, I know,
approval to
and I
get the
get
fund
that.
balance.
But another time, I'm looking at departments that's been frugal. And they've underused their money, and it seems like somewhere in there may be some kind of an appreciation or a recognition for, okay, you handled your monies well.
And I could say a lot of it's timing. So Robbie's the opposite end of the spectrum. So Robbie, as soon as October 1 hits, good, we needed the stuff, we're going to get it right now. And so, I mean, by November, they bought, 75% of stuff that they had planned on for the year. So and Chief is the other way. Hey, he's more cautious. Let's wait and see. Which I think Rosie appreciates, because if cash flow, if it all hits at once, well, that's not ideal. So you
Right.
kind of spreading it out through the year. And so when you're looking at that column that says as of May 31st, so you still have all of June, July, August,
Right.
September. So those projections are just that.
Yeah, I'm looking at the estimated 930 column.
Right. And on all that is taking the as of May,
Yeah.
dividing it by 12, and then multiplying it back out, knowing that we have 4 months out. So
Okay.
to quote Rosie, that's a más o menos number. It could be, it depends on, what is still left to be purchased.
Okay. And I have just a few, this won't take much, just a few of the departments. Let's talk about a couple items. Under administration, for this year, we had a budget, building repair and maintenance budget of $24,500. We actually used $47,265, but we're showing $0 for this coming year.
Which one are you at?
That should be line item 5380 under admin.
The assumption on that one was that they're going to be moving into a new building, so they shouldn't have as many repairs. At one point or the other, we will add a small amount there for everyday smaller repairs like plumbing or electrical issues that might come up. But that's towards the end. If we have any money left over, we'll allot some for that.
Okay. Finance, I don't understand this one at all. I need to.
I'm sorry.
On the, we have an appraisal fees budget.
Yes, sir.
So we pay for appraisals
Yes,
from
the county.
county appraisal.
The county charges us a per lot or per tax account a certain amount of money
Okay. Is this for new subdivision, new development?
for all of them,
Everything?
for
Oh.
everything.
Okay, so we had 104,000 budgeted last year, or this year. We actually used 173,000, and we're showing an estimate of 110,000 for next year. We think,
That's a good example. So we've actually only spent 101, and then so it's just projected. If we continue at that rate, then that's how it would get to 173. Realistically, that one could almost be zeroed out, right?
It'll have 1 quarter left, so
One
we'll
quarter
hit
left.
about the 100,000 there.
Okay.
Because I gave myself like $1,000 wiggle space on that account because of all the new accounts. But we should hit 100,000. The estimate, it's just a formula that I copied all the way down, and I forgot to zero that one down or bring it to a more realistic number.
Okay.
But by the time the budget's final, that part will be cleaned up.
Okay.
Actually, I already have it cleaned up.
Developmental services, we had a plan review, had a budget of 160,000. We actually spent 187,000. And this coming year, we're budgeting 100,000.
On that one, we're hoping that the AI software that Joe's has purchased will lower our costs.
Okay. Same thing, inspections, had a budget of 488,000, actual was 641, and we're budgeting 550, that's an increase over this year, which is good, but still not quite as much as we spent in current year. Same thing there, AI is supposed to, we think AI is going to help us out on that?
Not on the inspections, I don't think so, other than maybe streamlining some of them.
Okay. Okay, let's go on down to Public Works. So the budget for the fuel was 75,000. We actually used 110,000, and we're budgeting 100,000 for this coming year. The fuel on this one and the police department both, I think we may be a little skinny on those, but both of those.
Part of with fuel, the hope is that now we're on the other side of town, just a lot of the traveling is just to get to where you need to go. Not that we won't have any projects on that side of town, but just Public Works, the shop itself being over here,
Okay.
a lot closer to most of the projects, so.
Now, here's an interesting one. It's just a clarification. The ditch mowing had a budget of 20,000. We showed $0 used for the year. And then a budget of 20,000 going forward. I know we have ditch mowing, but wonder why we didn't pull money out of that.
It should be. There should be only like half of that budget left.
There should be some money, he's saying. So we would have to double check the account to see what's going on with the activity.
Okay. And then the Parks Department, capital outlay for equipment was 31,000. We used 30,000 of it, and we don't have any money allocated this year for parks. Think we're just going to be okay on that, or going to borrow from?
We were thinking, because there's so many different things going on right now, that would be a perfect candidate for the fund balance transfer, like in a mid-year, okay, Heritage Park is up and running, okay, we've got our second parks person on board. Now we know exactly what we want to do, and that's when the dust is settled from the end of the fiscal year, and then we feel a lot more confident about bringing you X number of dollars for this specific project. So we had some dollars in there, and we just, that was my call, just to take it out for now, because it's an unknown.
Actually, we still do have some, but it's in the capital outlay
Right.
for both parks to be upgraded, or one of the parks. In the capital outlay, we have, I believe, 250,000, and that was for the lights at Almost Heaven and a pathway for Billy Williams.
Okay.
So we have inserted some money, but under the capital projects. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And last thing I have to say is that according to this budget and the estimates used by the end of this year, September 30th, the police department has an unused fund of $1.2 million. So that's what I'm looking at. That's a lot of money to be left on the table. I think, Chief, you and I can have a chit-chat.
Again, that's just an estimate. I know a lot of their contracts, like Motorola, which is one of their biggest agreements, comes in around this time of the year, and that hasn't hit the account yet. And there's other agreements that come in towards the end of the year, which at that point, that's why we wait until September to see how much he can spend.
Yeah,
until we get all those big
a lot of this
agreements.
stuff is like our radio usage. It comes in through the city of Houston. That's a big chunk. There's some other things, maintenance agreements that we haven't paid yet. They always send them to us late for whatever reason, late in the year, so we always have to wait on that. But the biggest thing is the salaries. If you look at the salary line item, a lot of that money that you're looking at, a big chunk of that comes out of the salary line item.
And I don't let them touch that until almost at the end.
Yeah,
Well, it's
that's,
kind of hard for me to move forward with my budget ideas if
I can,
we're getting a lot of holes shot in this thing,
I can,
you know? So,
I can go back
boat's
and
sinking.
double check the salary line item. Me and Rosa can sit down and look at it, but I'm probably pretty sure there's going to be probably close to 250, 300,000 coming out for the remainder of the year just in salaries. So,
Actually, for salaries for the remaining of the year, I am estimating with the fringes, an additional 1.5 million that's calculated in there. And it would leave them about, for wage gaps, approximately 250,000 for wage
this
gaps.
is,
And it's more because of the timing they leave, then by the time we hire. There's a lot of trust me, by the time I get you these numbers, I've gone through almost everything at one point or the
I'm
other.
trying to do my best up here, so.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all my time. Thank you, Mayor.
We're kind of at the point right now to where we're looking at the line items closer and closer and closer as we go through to finish up the year. So it's actually tighter than what it really looks like.
Appreciate that, Chief.
Well, thank you, Councilman. Those were good questions. Appreciate you asking those. Council, what I'd like to do before we dive back into the budget, I learned that Ms. Crystal here has to leave at 5:30. Is that correct? Correct. So I want to give her a few minutes to be able to present the CIAC's recommendation on the impact fee, see if there's any quick questions that we have for her. We can then continue our conversation during the regular agenda. But Crystal, thank you for being here. I know you drove in from the Galleria to be here. You got to head back to
Back to the
meetings.
Galleria.
Yeah, so appreciate you being here. Can you just introduce the findings and the recommendation from the CIAC for us?
Right. Well, I think it's in y'all's best interest that I have to leave at 5:30. Otherwise, I'd probably talk way too long and answer way too many questions and open too many doors for comments. But thank you guys basically for accommodating me to speak with you during this workshop, which, frees me up for this afternoon. It's a very special day, and I've had many things that I've had to juggle, but that's not new in my life. So, and it's also great to see so many of y'all's faces, and I'm glad to be here. So ultimately, I would like to know if anybody here has already seen or was able to spend some time watching the video from the Capital Improvement Advisory Board on the wastewater and our discussions back and forth. And the reason I asked that is because when I sat in that seat and looked at it, it seemed very, very confusing to me. Ultimately, Friesen Nichols did an in-depth assessment. They came back with what they would recommend that we establish what our wastewater and water impact fees are. And initially, when we looked at the numbers, we thought, whoa, this is exorbitant. And it was quite a debate having Matt Lawson there, myself, Alina Rogers, and others, and obviously our city attorney helping us out with that, and Joe's. Everybody's just basically talking about these numbers and how do they really impact today, our existing taxpayers, our existing ratepayers, and the future. And it was really impressive to see, well, not impressive, but it was really eye-opening to see Matt Lawson really push back from the developer side, knowing that this agreement does not impact him at all, which in the beginning, my mindset was, oh, maybe it affects him. It doesn't. So that brought some peace to me. But ultimately, I have a presentation. I asked ChatGPT to take my 6 pages and turn it into a 2-minute presentation so that we can finish it up, okay? Actually, it wasn't chat. It was something else. But I'm going to read it to you guys, and then, because I want to make sure I don't miss anything, and speak off the cuff, okay? So ultimately, as the chair of the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee, I'm here to present the recommendation for the water and wastewater impact fees. So what we are recommending is that Manvel collect 50% of the allowable impact fee calculated in the updated study for the SUE, and that means service unit equivalent. That's a total of $9,968.50 for wastewater and $2,729 for water. The total goes up to $12,697.50. Now, this is a deliberate middle ground recommendation. It is roughly a 30% increase over the city's current combined impact fee level of approximately $9,548. But it is still substantially below the maximum allowable combined fee of $25,000, $25,395. Importantly, this is not a monthly water bill increase for existing residents. It's a one-time growth-related fee assessed when qualifying for new development connects to the system. So I wanted to make sure that I included that in there on purpose, because when we hear wastewater fees, it can be construed to look like a fee for our existing residents, and that is not what this is. This is an impact fee for new development in the future. Now, it's important to note that the $25,000 roughly that was recommended in the fee is huge. And so when we ask you to adopt 50% of that, it seems like, well, why are we cutting it in half? Well, that 50% is still an additional 30% on what we are collecting today. I hope that makes sense, because it can seem confusing, right? Okay, so second, we wanted to remain competitive. Why do we want to remain competitive? Because as everyone knows, Manvel is trying to grow. We're trying to grow responsibly, and we're trying to grow balanced. And as we've heard, most of these developers, commercial projects, they need to have something that they can target, that they can rely on, and a number that they know they can invest in without wishy-washy numbers. And so what this does is it still raises the rate because inflation, because we need to raise the rate that we collect on the front end for those developments, but we also want to remain competitive and attract responsible businesses that you know that I've advocated for, that we attract the type of business that is reliable, sustainable through the crisis of inflation and the things that we're seeing today. So with that, I'm going to end this and not read the other points that I have and open it up for any quick questions. But I just wanted to make that point. That's what it is. It's 50% that we're recommending. Ultimately, council, you guys get to decide whether we adopt the full $25,000 per home or if we go with the 30% increase. So it's confusing. 50% credit towards that maximum allowable, which you guys can decide, do you go up to the 25,000 per individual home unit, or do you adopt the 50% or don't change it at all? It's really in your court right now, but we do have to be responsible with the growth and those that want to build in Manvel, that they pay their fair share, but that it still remains competitive. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Council, and just to be respectful for Crystal's time, we have 7 minutes. Any comments or questions for Ms. Crystal? Councilman Albert?
Why, I'm not sure why you would set a rate and then only want to collect 50% of it. If we decided that we needed this rate, then wasn't there a reason that we said it was 25,000?
There's all these pages, according to Friesen Nichols, with their data and their models and their calculations. What they recommended is that's the maximum allowable that the state law requires any city to collect. However, that doesn't mean any city is actually collecting it. And if a city wants to go out and say, hey, you got to pay $25,000, you can do that. But the most expensive city in our surrounding area is Pearland, and it's less than what we're proposing collect here. So that was one of the questions that I had. I'm like, why recommend 25,000, but then allow us to offer a rebate? Now, currently today, that's what we do. That's what we adopted, I believe, in 2021 or 2023. No, 2021. That's what they did. They recommended a fee, and then council agreed on 50% of that fee because it was still collecting something on the front end from those developments and the commercial developments.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Jason. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Crystal, for the presentation. Was there any thought given to the last and only development that this council's done and the impact fees that were agreed to by that developer?
Which one?
BCS.
I don't remember them coming up in the conversations at all. No.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That fee was close to $20,000. And I'm wondering what message is that going to send if we've got a development that we just got $20,000 from, and I don't remember a whole lot of discussion on that. And now we're going to drop it down to $12,000.
Well, and that's interesting because that's not what we approved. The current approval is not 12,000, it's 9,000. So I'm concerned now that you mentioned that, because if BCS If we're collecting 20,000, is that on a 3/4 inch pipeline? Because this is the minimum for that pipeline for a single residential. But then as a commercial development comes in, that size of the pipe goes up, so that number goes up. So if it was 20,000, are we talking about single-family home, or are we talking about a commercial build? Because they're
Manager Dan,
different.
Can you speak to that?
Absolutely, yes. So BCS was not contemplated in the 2021 impact fee study, so we couldn't assess impact fees. The reason it wasn't in there is because it wasn't in the city limits. And so we don't assess impact fees outside the city limits. So as part of the development agreement for them to get utilities from us to come into the city limits, we agreed to the full amount, which was the not divided by 50, not divided by 2, in other words. So it was the full 20,000. So that was the agreement.
And I think my comment there is I don't think that it's going to affect future development as much as some are thinking. Now, granted, I'm not for going to the max. I'd be interested in legally what we can do. I've had some discussion with a couple of people about, can we set it at a fee that this is what it is going to be this year? In other words, figure out what the max would be 5 years from now when the next plan is going to be done, and try and work up to 75% of what the max is now over a year-to-year period.
What I'll say is that's a conversation that we'll have when the impact fee discussion is in front of us. Let's make sure to focus on the CIAC's recommendation tonight specifically. Any questions pertaining to their recommendation of the 50% or the work that they did?
I think it's low.
You think it's low? Okay. Well, and to be honest with you, at first, when we were going through the numbers of like, it's 25,000 for every single home. And so if you're looking at it, and this is just my perspective, as I mentioned when we were discussing this, is, and not just mine, but developers that are building homes to make it attractive to come here. Clearly, we looked at, obviously, my stance, right, as you guys know, we align with growth and commercial development over there and keeping that there without growing, small cookie cutter lots over here. And so when you take this approach, if you look at 26,000, and that's just for a single home resident, ultimately, and this is just transparency, right, is the builder is still going to pass that on to the homeowner. Whether we in the future see that, hey, we can't cover these fees and more money comes out of council's budget or out of the city's budget to accommodate for that, like, where do we want that money to either be put up front, or do we make up for it on the back end? And so that was one of the things that we considered is, okay, if we're going to attract good businesses that can afford this, the maximum, think about this, for a 1-inch pipe is $40,000, a one-time fee for that. And so when you look at a small business, like let's say a Mr. Donut Man, that's what they would have to pay in order to come here. And so I'm not against that personally. At first, I was shocked at the increase from $5,000, well, really $9,000 to $25,000. Nobody would come to Manvel. And that's from talking to businesses and just having conversation. Hey, what did you guys pay in Pearland? What are you paying in Alvin? What are you paying in Houston? What is a sustainable impact fee that you can build into your homes or into your business? One way or another, the homeowner is going to pay for it. They're going to either build it into the cost, or we're going to end up having to have this conversation later on. So, but to your point, it's just my job to present what we discussed and what our recommendation was. You guys ultimately have the decision to make, whether this is good or not for you guys. Personally, I didn't want to raise it at all, honestly. And then once we looked at the numbers, you got to consider the inflation, everything that's changing. It just costs way more to build, and it's either going to fall on us one day if we don't, make sure that the builders pay it up front with enough for us to mitigate risk on our part as a city and being responsible for our taxpayers. So that's really why we did that.
And I know you have to go here, Crystal.
Yes.
Quick question for
Time
you.
is it?
You kind of
5:30.
alluded to it, because the projects are going to cost what the projects are going to cost.
Yeah.
And they're only going to go up. Councilman Albert and I were on council when we adopted the rate in 2021. We should have adopted the max. The projects have increased so much that we've had to pull from other areas in the budget
Yep.
to make up that difference.
Yeah.
We've had to pull from sales tax revenue. We've had to pull from the police department. We've had to pull from public works. And so in the study that you guys did that F and I presented were there any recommendations, okay, if you adopt the 50%, these are the areas that you might have to cut or pull from?
No, we didn't discuss that at all. We just looked at what they presented, and we looked at the numbers. We did a comparison to that. We did a comparison at what other cities are doing, and we really put forward more so, what is it going to take to attract businesses so we can generate sales tax, so we don't have to increase taxes on our residents, yet keeping the integrity of the 1 acre lots that we're really striving for. So really not incentivizing that side, but incentivizing good businesses to come and generate sales tax so that we don't have that problem in the future.
Gotcha.
And I think that was one of the beautiful things of having that perspective throughout this. But that's a lovely question. And then, and to really speak to that is you're right. Things have gone up. That's something we're all feeling at the gas pump. You know, affordability has gone down. And the reality is that if anybody's in business and they're building for the future, they're probably doing really well, because more businesses are closing than opening right now. And that's a fact in the state of our economy. And so, which is why I want to bring it back to, I felt it was fair. I don't think it's perfect. I think we could spend hours dissecting all of this. We won't know. I mean, the projections for the growth in Manvel were huge, and really, it's unsustainable with the economy right now. I mean, you're talking to developers, they can't sell 500 homes like they used to. So with that being said, we're recommending 50% of the max. That is still 30% more than what we're collecting today. And again, this is something we can revise, and that's why we hire them to do that. And so hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years, we can revisit this. And if we haven't collected enough, then we go back to that. But it's really just a recommendation.
Perfect. Well, Council, if you guys have any follow-up questions for Crystal or for the CIAC, get those to Dan. We'll distribute them to you
Yeah.
if there's any follow-ups there. Appreciate you being here tonight. I know you have to run, so we'll make sure
do.
to cut it off.
Have to
there.
drive. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Crystal.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I'm always a text, phone call, or an email away. Bye. Thank you.
He said, enjoy Houston.
The belly of the beast.
So, Council, we will have the agenda item on the regular agenda for that. So if we have any follow-ups for staff at the time, maybe Joe's, Dan, or Bobby could speak to those pertaining to the recommendation specifically. But we'll go back to the budget for now. Councilman Lands had some recap questions, some items he wanted to review. Before we dive into the utility fund, any follow-ups for the team?
I got one question.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I just want to understand, this is just an understanding question. On under expenses for admin again, for the mud fees, mud reimbursement, can I just understand, I see we had expenditures in 23, 24, none in 25, none for the budget this year. How does that work? How do we know when we're going to have those or not?
Actually, those fees were changed to the debt service. That way, the debt rate that we receive includes those payments, and they're not coming out of the general fund, and the money's reserved for payment. If you go down, you'll see property tax rebates under the Fund 30.
You know what page of the 14 that's on?
I think it's on page 1 of 4. So there's the 14 and then the 6 and then the 4. So it's the fund summaries. Is that right, Rosie?
Yeah, 1 of 4.
Yeah, 30 debt service.
I see it. Okay, so this year, what are we budgeting for that? How do I break that number down? I see.
We are budgeting $847,376.
Okay,
That's on the property tax rebates. That's not including sales tax rebates.
right, under this Fund 30 debt service.
Yes.
I see the current total budget being 80,000. Is that the 80,000 you're talking about? No, that's not even that. Maybe I'm not looking at the right debt service. I'm looking at the group summary. Is that not the right one?
I think for debt service, we only had it under the group summaries, the page summaries,
Okay, so I see ad valorem tax revenues,
which is property tax.
and that's current total budget 4.4 million. And of that the actual activities 4.05 so far. So right now, we're showing that as a negative number for the variance, is that correct? Or is that what's left to pay out, or that's coming in? We're changing it to debt service.
No, revenue is money coming in.
Yeah, it's wrapped into the 7.1 expenditures, isn't it, Rosie? We'd have to
Yes.
break that out.
Okay, the 7.1 budgeted number is 2.17 on bond principal, 4.1 on interest expense, fiscal agent fees, 6,000, and then on the property is 847,000 on property tax rebates, which would make your total expense for that 7.1 million.
But it's always going to be based on the taxes that are collected.
That is correct.
That's why we put it under debt service instead of the old way that it was?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that makes more sense.
That, and we can put that money in reserve instead of trying to pull it out of the general fund. Here it's safe. It's included in the tax rate calculation that the county does for us also.
Now, at the end of the year, if there's funds left in that, where does it go to?
It stays there for the next bond payment. Remember, we pay our bonds out of there.
Okay, so it's not like anything else where it rolls over to the.
No,
general-
that has to stay for debt service.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, council, for the sake of time, let's move on to the utility fund. You do have a presentation in your packet for that. And I believe we have our Assistant City Manager, Jackie George, that's going to be presenting the utility fund to us. Ms. Jackie?
All right.
First
so
presentation. Let's
First
take it.
presentation. If you have detailed questions about the numbers, Rosie is still your person. Okay, so what I'm going to go over are where the rates are today, what we estimate those rates will generate in the next fiscal year, what the proposed budget requires, and then the staff recommendation for addressing the difference. So if we start, we'll talk about our current rates. So the utility fund is intended to be self-supporting. That means that customers who use the system will pay for the system. And those funds pay for operations, personnel, maintenance, repairs, capital improvements, and debt. So right now, a residential customer today has a water base charge of $28.36 and the wastewater base charge of $34.03, which gives us a minimum residential bill of $62.39 for the first 2,000 gallons. And then after those 2,000 gallons, we have an additional usage charge of $2.60 for every 1,000 gallons after that. So I know you all know, but just for the sake of everyone else, there's two pieces to the customer's bill, the base charge and the usage charge. So later on, when we discuss the rate revenue increasing, we're not talking about increasing a customer's bill by that percentage. So why does fiscal year 26-27 cost more? First of all, we have several things that increase the cost, but the new water reclamation facility is one of our major ones. We now have the recurring costs of water, of running the water facility. The wastewater electricity is budgeted to increase from $85,000 to $290,000. We now have daily E. coli testing that's required for us to run daily at $30,000 annually. And then there's chemical costs increasing also. And then we also have staff needs. They've been requested 3 additional operators and 1 maintenance position for the new facility, but the proposed budget only funds, they don't fund all of those. I'll get to what they fund in a minute. The cost outside of the day-to-day operations is the debt service increases from about $394,000 to $625,000 because of the bond payment. And surface water rights costs are increasing as well. One thing that I want to point out is the wastewater budget doesn't operate the new facility. It also supports our lift stations and the MTC wastewater plant. There's another significant increase in the budgeted depreciation, so that's been accounted for here in these numbers as well. So now let's look at what happens if council leaves the utility rates exactly where they are. Finance projects approximately $3.278 million in water and wastewater rate revenue at existing rates. When we add approximately $1.664 million in other utility funds, that gives us a total of $4.942 million in revenue. The city manager's proposed expense budget is approximately $5.43 million, so that gives us a funding gap of about $488,000. So in 2022, as Crystal was also talking about, the city hired the Freeze and Nichols to do the rate update or rate study. Our current rates in the city are still at the suggested 2023 rates in that chart. That's a $62.39 combined residential minimum bill with a $260 usage charge. So just for illustration, we applied the approximate 14.9% additional revenue requirement equally across the current base and the usage charge, and that gives us a combined minimum residential bill that would increase to $71.69. So it's $9.30 more per month. But that's just based, like if we were just to increase it over, not base and usage. For comparison, the 2022 study recommended the fiscal year 26-27 combined minimum to be $84.61 and a $4.48 usage charge. The actual rate structure would ultimately depend on how you decided to balance the base and the usage charge. So staff's recommendation is to adjust utility rates enough to generate approximately $488,000 in additional annual revenue, which would fund the city manager's proposed utility fund budget. The existing rates are forecast to generate about $3.78 million in water and wastewater rate revenue. To produce the extra $488,000 required, you would have to raise the rate 14.9%. Again, the 14.9% rate revenue is needed. That's not every customer's automatic bill increase. Every bill has a base component and usage component, so how council ultimately divides and adjusts between those two will actually be the impact of individual customers. So this recommendation is just to fund everything the utility, is not to fund everything the utility department actually requested. It's just what made it to the proposed budget. Oh, I went too far. The city manager's proposed budget represents a prioritized version, and that's what's on the left. And then the items on the right remain still deferred. So the recommendation, again, is to generate the $488,000 that does not fully fund every department request. So I proposed a few options, and I'll start with option D. Option D is our baseline, and that would mean that we wouldn't increase the rate revenue. That means we wouldn't make any more money. That would still, again, give us the $488,000 deficit. If we jump over to B, that's if we fully fund the city manager's proposed budget. And to make that $488,000, we increase by 14.9%. And then we wouldn't have to find any funds anywhere else. On option D, we would still have to find funds somewhere, whatever you decide to do. And then option C, I just threw in here as an example in case you wanted to land somewhere in the middle, and I chose 10% as an example. If we use 10% increase, that would generate $327,000, giving us a $160,000 gap to find funds for. So at that time, we have your questions.
All right, I'll kick us off here. Thank you, Jackie. Great overview. Each year, we've seen the way that we present the utility fund evolve, and provide more details, more explanation behind it. So this presentation by itself was much appreciated. And Ernie, to you and your team, thank you for all that you guys do. I just need to get some understanding around the numbers here. So if we take a look at the slide 4, so non-rate revenue, what does that entail?
That would be different things like the interest income, the tap fees, any other fees that we might charge for whatever reason.
Okay. So current fiscal year's budget projects $3,041,000 in revenue for water and wastewater combined. The estimated water and wastewater rate revenue in the fiscal year 26 budget at the current rates would be $3.27 million. The difference between the two, I'm assuming, is because we have more ratepayers
That
that
is
have been
correct.
added to the system. So roughly $230,000 increase in new ratepayers.
That is correct.
Okay. If we take a look here, going down to, actually, no. You go up to why 26-27 costs more. And if we take a look at the column there that says rising costs, that debt service, the 394K to 625K, how are we, is that covered from the MEDC contribution?
No. This would be out of the debt service. What we're doing, if you remember correctly, when we took out the WRF, the WRF was going to be funded from various funds. Part of it was going to be from the MEDC. Another part was from the impact fees. And the third part was from the utility fund itself, and then whatever was left over in the debt service. Well, we've depleted the debt service, and according to Joe's schedule back then, $625,000 is the portion that the utility should have been paying for the past couple of years, I'm sorry. And we haven't been able to do that until this year's what I plugged in the full amount, and then we have to work from there.
Okay, so that $231,000 difference, when we take a look at the estimated funding gap, essentially, that's about half of it, roughly.
That's correct.
So if we found another way to fund that, such as the MEDC contribution,
And
then that cuts that funding gap in half.
that would be correct.
Okay. Just some room for thought there.
But keep something in mind, we're already also using MEDC to fund the gap from the impact fees.
Correct. Yep. But that 90% that the MEDC contributes continues to grow each.
And that is
each and
correct,
every year.
yes.
Okay. And then just want to kind of run through these. I'm grouping them into some categories here. If we take a look at what the proposed budget includes, we see two positions. What's the rough total compensation for those two positions combined? And when I say total compensation, not just base salary, but benefits, et cetera. Fully loaded.
Fully loaded for those two positions, you are talking about $191,000.
Okay. Lab equipment, safety equipment, roughly, what would those cost us? That's included in the proposed budget?
We included $30,000. $10,000 was the base that we were working with, and then Ernie requested $20,000 more because of all the digging and stuff like that that they have to do. They have to have a lot of safety precautions
Okay.
and the chemicals.
And then the F-150?
The F-150 would cost you $50,000, and the Maverick $35,000.
Okay. So we're looking at a total of $306,000 for all of that. Okay.
In other words, if we didn't give him anything and we just paid part of the debt service, we would not have to increase any rates. But of course, even if I increase the estimated rate based on the study, we would still not be able to give him all the staff he needs to be able to run that WRF.
Yeah, absolutely. Now the remind me, what is the Maverick again?
A smaller truck so that the meter readers can use instead of
Get
using
around.
the bigger trucks and
Okay.
spend more gas.
Yep, absolutely, that makes sense. Now, this proposal, it is just an increase, it's proposing an increase in the base rate. Is it proposing an increase in the,
Volumetric also.
it's proposing, okay, what is the proposed increase in the usage rate? Because I just see the 14.9% in the base rate.
The volumetric would go from 398 to 448.
398 to 448, okay. So what would be the total proposed impact to a standard home in Manvel to their bill? I know the base rate's easy to calculate, that would be a $111 increase. What's the projection for, based off of the usage rate too, for an average home?
We're not able to get what an average home does with our system. I'd have to go through pages and pages and figure out what the medium is. But somebody who's getting about $100 bill right now would probably increase on the volume about $15 to $25, depending.
Okay, so just for the sake of, I'd rather be super conservative and just go the high. So you're looking at about a roughly $300 increase, if we're being very conservative there, for everybody's bill, for the average bill then.
From 3846 to 35, from 3558 is like $3.21 on the base fee for the water.
Well, let's do this, Rosie. I'm not going to ask you, because I want us to take time to think about this.
Okay.
We'll come back with a formal, like, thumbs up, thumbs down at the next meeting. If we could just get what an average home would look like, just to see, here's what the base rate is.
On the
usage
base rate, you're looking at an increase of $6.66 per home.
Correct. Yep. Okay. Surface water price increase,
Yes,
we sell that.
yes, and
So
that's
covered.
That's covered on the other income.
Okay, perfect. Where I could, it'd be tough to advocate for me to advocate for the full 14%. I understand that cost is increasing. Supplies are increasing, chemicals are increasing. I get that we need new equipment. I get that we need the new F-150. I get that we need the Maverick. Where it would be tough for me is to say, hey, we are increasing rates on existing ratepayers to pay for operators at a new plant that the existing ratepayers, they don't need that plant. That plant's there to service the new growth. So when we talk about those two staffing positions, I could see that coming out of that roughly $230,000 of increase from new ratepayers being on the system. I can also get behind, I understand the need to increase the rates to pay for existing costs, to keep up with those costs. 14% is going to be tough for me. I definitely would fall less than that. But I think just diving into those numbers, possibly looking at that MEDC contribution to help cover some of that cost may mean that we don't have to increase the rates at all. I'm going to want some more time to dive into these numbers, might have some follow-ups for you guys, but really appreciate that clarity and the work that went on into all of this. Council, comments, questions? Yeah, Councilman.
I have a quick one about, has this already been considered? I know that last year when we were talking about the tax rate, I think that the full max rate had already been considered last year, so we wouldn't have to raise the tax rate. Is that what's happened here now? Are we looking at, like, if we accept this 14.9%, is it going to keep things flowing with the 56 cents? We're just going to make it
No.
tough for you guys.
This is completely separate. The utility
Yes, but I'm
fund
just
is a
saying.
different
Okay.
fund completely, and the rates are for the utility bill accounts.
Okay.
For the water and sewer. And the water and sewer's money is completely separate than the 56 cents.
So I'll ask it this way for you, Councilman. Like, if it's projected roughly 14% this year, what are we looking at the projection rate increases for each of the next few years after that?
And Mayor, I can share the tape. I know the study from 2022 that Jackie talked about. So I think it's still helpful just to kind of look back on. Ironically, the 14.9 increase is what they had projected when we went from 22-23 to 23-24. So we didn't make that one. The next one last year, 2 years ago, would have been 6.3, then 2.7. So ordinarily this year we would have been at 8.1. So, I mean, it's cumulative, so each year that you don't keep up with it, at some point, you're just going to have a bigger percentage increase. That's all.
So the 14.9% basically puts us in the 23-24 category.
Okay.
It's exactly
I guess
what we would.
My question was kind of like, because the system is not, I mean, if the people that are using the system now, it's not paying for itself, so the money's coming from somewhere. So it's coming out of where?
At the moment, we're playing musical chairs, I guess. We borrow from wherever we need to or get from the fund balance, but we try to leave the 56 cents from the general fund in the general fund. But at one point, I know that they were funding the utility fund. Since I've been here, that has stopped, but we do go into the fund balance. We don't have enough funds for Ernie to be able to do all the maintenance on the stuff he needs. For example, on this budget, he's asking for 350 meter replacements. That's just half of what he needs to replace. So that would be phase one. Phase two, he'd have to next year come back and ask for money for 300 more. And these are aging out, so we're starting to have trouble with them. They're having trouble reading them, or they're no longer compatible with what we have now.
I just want to make sure that we're not saying, let's just keep this rate low and let's not adopt this larger amount, and then it's forcing us to pull money from other areas, and it's putting us in a really tight situation to keep those taxes low at 56 cents.
And actually, if you think about the utility fund works hand in hand with the impact fee. So the less impact fees we have, the more the utility fund has to come up with money to do those projects that are on the impact fee study.
I'll keep that in mind.
Real quick before we go to Mayor Pro Tem, how much did the rate increase last year?
Go ahead.
Last year's increase was an overall 3.2. Oh, no, we combined 2 years because we hadn't done it the year before, so it was 11.2.
So an 11.2% increase last year. It's now being proposed to us to do a 14.9% increase this year.
9.1 overall. According to the study, it would be a 9.1.
But the presentation says 14%.
Oh, because she's adding, what, 2 years together, or?
I don't know. On this side?
The 14.9 adjustment?
Well, remember, there's two different numbers there. So one is a base rate increase, and then one is the overall increase. So you're talking about the overall increase is 14.9. So it's two components, a base rate component increase and a volumetric
So the
component.
budget increase, we're needing to find a way to increase the budget by 14.9%.
That's right.
What is being proposed as the base rate percentage increase?
For the base rate percentage increase, it would be 8.1.
8.1%.
The volumetric at 12.5, overall 9.1. Weighted, that's
Weighted,
according
okay.
to,
Okay. And last year was overall weighted at 11%.
11.2, yes, sir. Because
11.2%.
we hadn't done it on the year before, so we were very shortfall on the thing, so we had to do a catch-up for 2 years.
Gotcha. Okay. Appreciate that. Kind of wading through all of it, so that makes sense. Mayor Pro Tem, and then we'll go Councilman Lands, and then we'll wrap it up for the workshop here.
Yeah, a couple of questions. So the proposed budget is probably, 50% weighted on the startup of the water reclamation plant, or less than that? And when is that projected startup?
Well, the employees are scheduled for all year long because they're going to have to go through trainings and get set up to run this new plant, because I believe it's one of the first ones in the area. So as soon as Ernie can get the people, we're going to have them on board.
I understand the employees, because I was a big proponent for
Yeah.
getting them on board last budget.
And everything else, yes, we did wait. We just got a certain percentage.
I'm just trying to figure
the
out, out of
utilities.
this 14.7 that we need to go to keep it, that's not just employees, that's electricity costs.
Exactly.
When is that
Exactly.
going to start? When's the debt service going to start?
The plant should turn over about April is what they're projecting.
Okay, so-
It's actually operational.
And the debt service is already running. Since we took out the bond, we're having to pay that debt service
Okay, so
yearly.
that's on a schedule that
Yes.
it's causing that increase, nothing to
Exactly.
do with when you start up.
Exactly.
But the electricity is several hundred, what was it, 85,000 or 100 and something? I'm trying to go back.
I got it up there.
It's 85,000
Yeah.
to 290,000.
So 290,000, and the plant just doesn't come on and we're at 100%, correct, Ernie? It's going to have to ramp.
Numbers that were provided on the 290, they base every motor on the percentage of operation.
Right. But we're talking about 6 months into the budget year before the electricity cost will probably go on at current schedule.
And I think we took that into consideration when we came up with this budget with the lights, that basically we're just scheduling half of the increase right now. Next year is going to go up another considerable.
Understand. I'm just trying to
Amount.
put some thought in. Now, my question is now, does or does it not, the impact fees, how, if we had a proposed increase in impact fees, how does that project into your numbers?
They don't, because the impact fees does not fund the operating expense. It's only allowed to fund special projects that the CIAC sets up when they set the,
It could help with debt payments.
It could, but it only helps if people are paying into the impact fees. So right now, other than
here and
a
there.
little bit of Valencia that's left over, there aren't a lot of developments that have to pay impact fees right now.
So this is only new growth that would
Yes.
come in that would pay those.
Right, we can't use impact fees, the new growth associated with impact fees, we can't use that to pay for maintenance of the old stuff.
Okay?
But they can pay, for example, the new well that's needed, certain projects that have already been determined that can come from the impact fee. That's it.
All right.
But it can't offset the depreciation cost?
No.
I hate that fake number.
I know, but that's what happens when we accept a lot of infrastructure.
Which we have to, because
Yeah.
the auditors told us.
Yes.
What about the new meter cost?
I don't want another naughty on my report next year.
Couldn't consider that a project?
The question was, could the new the new meters, the replacement meters, could those be paid for with impact fees?
No, because it has not been set in the CIAC.
Yeah, if it were a project, I guess, in the CIAC, but I don't know that they would allow it. It would probably only be if you were enlarging them or something, a new impact, and then it would just be the percentage of the increase. But that's just the cost of doing business. I don't think impact fees can pay for that.
I was just wondering with instrumentation, sometimes the newer meter is not just a replacement, it's better. It serves a better purpose. So I was wondering if that could be somehow figured to be a project. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilman Lands?
So this budget includes our bond payment,
That is correct.
okay? And that bond payment changes year to year.
It should stay fixed at 625 until they finish paying.
Run that back again?
It should stay fixed at the 625,000
Going forward? Mm-hmm. Great,
for the utility fund.
okay, that's great. That's,
But we can only thank that to MEDC, because if we had to carry the whole payment, it would be $2.7 million a year.
right. Now, does that 2.7, does it increase? Or is it stay?
It fluctuates a little bit. It'll go down to 2.5, then up to 2.6, but it stays in that area until maybe the last 5 years.
Okay, I'm just wondering how that plays into this fees that we're getting from our citizens. We're undercutting the amount that, like Crystal presented, for the taps, and we're undercutting for our expenses for the water and sewer, and we're undercutting on our new developments on money they should be giving the city. I don't think we can undercut much more, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, or Councilman Lands. Any final comments, questions? Manager Dan, if we could have more of a formal agenda item at the next meeting on the regular agenda to give you guys clear direction for this. We like to do that before we adopt the budget. That way, if there are any changes to what the percentage is, you guys adjust with the budget there. So we'll have that on the next agenda.
Actually, I'll be presenting the first reading of the ordinance, because it's the first week of September, so we want, and at that point, if we need to modify the rate that I'm proposing, you guys can give us direction there.
It works.
That way, we have both readings right at the same time that we're adopting the budget.
Absolutely. I don't know if we have time, Dan, to cover capital improvements or vehicle replacement, but we can come back at the end if you guys need. I think you guys need some direction on vehicle replacement.
I think utility funds was the main one that we needed the input on. There was a pretty passionate response from council about not raising property taxes. or property tax rate, I should say. So we just wanted to make sure, the thumbs up that at least it sounds like you're open to a rate increase. Sounds like a couple are maybe not open to the full 14%, but maybe reserving kind of the right to answer that once you have some of your questions answered.
Yep, that's what my position would be.
Maybe we can do that because we have 3 weeks, I think, right, until. So maybe I can meet with a couple of y'all and we can get all the questions answered.
Okay, sounds good. Council, if you guys are good with it, we can take just a 4-minute quick recess, come back at 6:10, get started for the regular meeting. All right, we will stop the workshop here at 6:06 PM. All right, we will call this regular session to order here at 6:12 PM. We have 7 of 7 members present. We're going to begin the invocation with Pastor Jeremy Murphy. Pastor Murphy, thank you for being here tonight, sir.
Father, we thank you so much for this time. Thank you, Lord, for the people of Manvel. Thank you, God, that we can serve the people of Manvel well. I thank you for our mayor, our council. Thank you for the leadership of this city. God, we just pray that you would give them wisdom as they continue to make decisions. And so, Father, we praise you. We thank you that we can work together for the good of this city, for the good of your people. And Lord, I just pray that you would watch over the people who serve our communities so well, the first responders, the families, the businesses, everyone who serves this community. Father, we thank you that we are a part of it. And Lord, we ask your blessing over this time. Guide tonight's meeting, and I pray that everything will be done here to reflect your wisdom and your guidance and good stewardship. And we thank you in Jesus' name. And everybody prayed and said, Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Next, we have the inspirational reading from Councilmember David Lands.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to go forward with the good stewardship, this is a quote given to me by a very good friend. So, good stewardship is about recognizing that which has been placed in our care is not simply ours to use, it is ours to protect, strengthen, and pass forward. As public servants, we are entrusted with resources, responsibilities, and most importantly, the confidence of the people we serve. Good stewardship means making decisions not only for what is needed today, but with consideration for those who will live with those decisions tomorrow. tomorrow. It means being thoughtful with public resources, responsible with opportunities, and willing to make difficult choices when the easiest choice may not be the best one. As we go through this budget process, may we remember that leadership is temporary, but the impact of good stewardship can last for generations. May we leave our community stronger, more prepared, and better positioned for the future because of the decisions we make today.
Thank you, Councilman. If you can, please stand and join me in saying the pledges. First to the U.S. flag, I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
and to the Texas flag, honor
The Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. You may be seated. Well, Council, if you guys can join me around the front here, we have a few recognitions to give out and some photos to take.
All right. Photo opportunity.
All right. The first recognition we're going to give tonight is a young man who just entered the 5th grade. For those of you that don't know, Alvin ISD, every summer they do the summer book bus. And that's where they drive around and they set up a bus filled with books and they invite readers to come out and read stories to kids during the summertime. They set up at our local Manvel library and they invited me to come out and read. And while I was reading, I met Mr. Charles Runner. Charles is going into the 5th grade and he told me that he had a goal of reading 30 hours worth of books this summer. I said, all right, man, well, I'm challenging you to do that. You can do it. I believe in you. You got to tell me if you complete it, though. And so his mom reached out to me through social media, and she let me know that before the summer ended and he went back to school, he successfully completed reading 30 hours throughout this summer. And we wanted to give him a recognition tonight and encouraging him to keep turning those pages and reaching for his dreams. So if you guys can give me a round of applause in welcoming Mr. Charles Runner forward. Congratulations, Charles. One of the things we do anytime we give out a certificate or a recognition, you got to say a few words on the microphone. Okay? You think you can do that? Can you tell us what was your favorite book to read this summer?
Grenade.
And what was that book about?
It was about World War II and how a young boy from Okinawa fought against America and the Japanese and American War.
I love that. And are you reading a book right now? What are you reading right now?
Old school.
And what's Old School about?
It's about, I haven't really read much of it, so I'm still just learning what the characters and the plot is, but I don't really know what it's about.
But you're excited to read it? I love that. And you just went back to school. Are you excited? Okay, what's your favorite subject in school?
Social studies.
Social studies. Love that because you just read a book about World War II, so that's awesome. Well, congratulations, Charles. We here at Manvel City Council, we are so proud of you. We want to encourage you to keep reading and setting a good example there. So let's take a photo together. Council, if you guys can join. Right here. I'm going to put you right here in the center. Now, you want to take a photo with your family? All right, family, come forward. You guys can take it. Go to the side, please. And we'll make sure to get you guys the photos. Thank you. All right, next we have 2 recognitions to give out, and then we'll turn it over to the chief for a few tenure recognitions. But we have 2 outgoing members of various boards, actually both on the same board, Planning, Development, and Zoning, and we wanted to recognize them tonight for their years of service. For those that do not know, PD&Z stands for Planning, Development, and Zoning. Many plats, plans, development agreements, minor plats goes through them for review. Many times they send recommendations to City Council. I'd say probably what, Dan? Manager Dan, about 90% of the time we do agree. 95% of the time we do agree. There's sometimes we disagree, but it's always great to have their perspective as citizens of Manvel. And so first, we want to recognize Ryan Miller. Ryan has served how many years now as chairman of the board? 4 or 5 years. He's been the fearless leader of PD&Z, and we just want to recognize him for his time, his leadership, and his commitment to thoughtful planning and responsible development that have contributed to the growth and success of the Manvel community. He served from 2021 until 2026. So Ryan, if you want to come forward, let's give him a round of applause. You got to say a few words as well.
Well, I appreciate it. It's it's been a real privilege to be able to do it. I've learned a lot from council, the rest of the Planning, Development, Zoning Commission, and of course all the staff. It's been great to work with everybody, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, council, join in here for the photo. All right, come forward. You got it.
I just want to get up with y'all guys. Thank you.
And next, we have another recognition here. This is for Mr. William Richardson. William served from 2024 to 2026. When I first met him, he had long hair. Now he's looking dashing there with the short hair. But William, we appreciate your service and all that you contributed to the success of our community. So let's give him a round of applause.
Going to make me talk? No, it was a privilege to serve on the PD&Z and to learn about the ongoings of what you all have to deal with and what we have to understand. So it was an enjoyable experience. I do appreciate it.
Oh, we got to take a photo. We got to take a photo. You can't get away that fast. All right. Next, we have staff recognition for their 5-year anniversaries. And Chief Traylor, we'll turn this over to you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I actually have 3 recognitions tonight. 2 of them, I think one of them's working night shift, so he's not able to make it. 2 of my patrol officers, Sergeant Kohanik, he's been with us now for 5 years, and Austin Livingston has been with us for 5 years. Both of them work in the patrol division. Some of my shining stars, I guess you would say. They're doing a really good job with us in the patrol, learning a whole lot. The third one I have tonight, she's here with us tonight. Y'all all know her. She doesn't need any introduction. It's Miss Rochelle Carlacy, been here 5 years. Interesting story with Miss Rochelle is, if y'all remember back in 2021, well, I know 2 of y'all do, there was a big push to hire a whole bunch of officers one year. And we did that. We were able to get that accomplished. And then all of a sudden in the middle of the year, someone come up with the idea, you need one more. You need a recruiter. And I'm going, oh my goodness, you know, I'm already doing the best I can do, but recruiter is good. And then I said, well, we can do 2 things. We can make a recruiter and community relations officer. And I had that with someone in particular in mind, and she has done an outstanding job with what she's doing. I couldn't have found anyone better to have put in that place. So, Ms. Rochelle, it's your turn. You made it.
I know, right?
Now, you got to say something, and then we'll do it.
You got to say a few words about your time here in Manvel.
Well, thank you all. Jeez, I'm always waiting for a picture. They say time flies when you're having fun, and that is what I'm doing here with the city. 5 years has creeped up on me so fast. When I got here, started out with patrol, there was no community relations. That was half of the positions that we currently have now. And the officers, with the growth and the growth of the city, have seen how it has expanded, and it's only going to continue to grow. So I pray that the council give us extra staff, but I'm all for recruiting. I recruit off duty. Hey, you like your job? Because where I work at is the best. And y'all not only look out for the employees, but our families as well. So I'd like to thank y'all for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You guys, photo now.
And I didn't tell her to say that.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, no, she's just smiling. All right. Next, we have a public hearing, but since this is a continuation from one on April 20th, we'll just jump right into it. So we are going to have this public hearing at 6:25 p.m., and this is to hear input from the public on land use assumptions and the capital improvements plan for possible adoption of impact fees for roadway facilities. We will do the first call for anybody wishing to speak on the subject of this public hearing. Second call. And third call. So we will close the public hearing at 6:25 p.m. Any public comments submitted, Tammy? No public comments, so we will move on past that. Now to our city manager update. Manager Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. That went by quickly. The first one, I just want to remind everybody that we do have a budget town hall this Wednesday right here in this room. We start at 4 p.m. TxDOT is scheduled to be here to give a little update as well, like they did last year, which is very nice. We appreciate that. Second thing is the charter. So the charter committee is rolling right along. They've met 3 times now. Just hit the halfway point. They're five sections into a 10-section document. They wanted to go ahead and get a public hearing on the books, so they have one scheduled for next Tuesday at 6:30. No specific items, just wanted to make sure that we haven't had a lot of public interaction just yet. So if the public felt passionately about something, next Tuesday at the first public hearing would be a great time to do that. If they talked about maybe having another one towards the end of their charge later in the year. And then the last thing was what we have right up here. Thank you, Blake, for putting that up. Brazoria County Clerk's Office, we just found out from them that they're going to be open this Saturday for kind of a special thing. That's the one right here in town, right by corporate. So birth certificates, death certificates, marriage license, those kind of things. So not everything, but still pretty helpful that they'll be open for a few hours Saturday morning if your work schedule doesn't allow you to get over there during normal business hours. That's all, Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Manager Dan. Consent agenda. Council, any comments or questions regarding the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion for the consent agenda? We have a motion to approve from Councilman Rossi Knox. Do I have a second? We have a second from Mayor Pro Tem Bonner. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. We have no items removed from the consent agenda, so now we'll move on to the regular agenda. Agenda item number 1, which is discussion and direction to staff on the city's financial management policies. Manager Dan.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So this document was recently updated in 2024, and I think we corrected or updated a lot of good things when we did that update in 2024. But we've noticed that the idea and the concept of fund balance seems to come up each year. What council at that time agreed to target was 6 months. We always say 50%, but I mean 6 months out of 12 months, that's how you get the 50%. The idea was that we would, and it actually says the city shall strive to maintain the general fund undesignated fund balance at a target of at least 6 months of general operating expenditure. If you're watching other cities right now, the term rainy day fund comes up quite a bit. We actually had to dip into this when we had Hurricane Beryl come through a few years ago. Obviously, those are unplanned events, so it's wise, it's required in some cases to keep something set aside that's there if you need it. 6 months, that's probably one of the most conservative ones around. Most cities are not 50%, but some cities are. Rosie's been reaching out and talking to some of the folks that we do financial business with, and they definitely don't recommend going less than 30%. And I know a couple of council members mentioned throughout the idea of 40% last week. So we don't have necessarily a recommendation. We just wanted to see if this is something that we want to address so that it doesn't seem nebulous, perhaps in the future. And of course, if there's anything else in the financial policy, we can update that if we open it up. It's just a resolution, so it's a one-time reading, relatively easy to update. But that's where we're at, Mayor.
Great. Thank you. Councilman Lance, did you have a question? Or comment?
No.
No, okay.
I'm sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I wanted to know, I was one of the proponents of the 40%. Did we have time to look and see what would the 40% number be based on our current balance right now and projections for the end of the year?
Based on this year's budget, 40% of the 6.2 million would be about 3 million.
I'm sorry?
About 3 million.
3?
3.
Hold on, total expenditures, 50%, no, I'm sorry about that. 40%, oh, come on, my number pad doesn't want to work. 40% would be at 7.441 instead of the 9.3 that we have right now.
So about almost 3 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So my question behind that is, if we adopted the 40% rule, okay, right now in the fund is how much? At the third quarter mark?
6.2 million if we spend all the money and we receive all the revenues
Right.
budgeted.
Or it could go up or down depending on.
Exactly, on how much
the deal.
gets
But we're
used.
almost there anyway.
Yes.
So if we were at 40% and barring some major catastrophe, we would make up that money, I hate to use the word easily, but easily next year. We would get to the 40% mark based on our current revenue stream. So I'm wondering, how could that in fact, number one, the proposed rate changes moving forward? You know, if we're looking at this 14 point something percent, the mayor has stated already he could possibly be behind in the 8% range, whatever we could get it down to based on this. Now, I know some of the funds we talked about using for part of the supplemental request to do that, and I think that was that the 828,000 or the 1.2? I don't remember now. I'm really trying to remember. But what I'm getting at is whatever funds from this that were left over after those few items that we talked about possibly being able to include in this year's budget, if there was something left over, can that go against whatever rate increase that we do, or does it have to be drawn out of particular funds?
One-time items only,
One-time items only.
yes. So that would be more equipment that Public Works might need, or more equipment that Chief might need, but not the reoccurring expense, which the basic budget is reoccurring expense. Agreements that we're in or anything like that, we cannot cover that way.
Okay. So it's not going to help us anywhere on the shortages that we've identified tonight on utility fund?
No.
Okay. I'm still for using it for, if nothing else, the supplemental request.
And I
think some
agree
of
with
those
that.
some of those are important. And then looking further down the line, even at the mid-year, you know, just having the general fund, some of those monies freed up for any one-time purchases that might come later in the year. So that's where I stand on it, is 40%.
Manager Dan.
Well, I was just going to say, so in the spirit of full disclosure, there are some one-time purchases like the vehicles in the utility fund that we talked about tonight. But we really try not to do that, because then we're basically taking tax dollars from the citizenry to pay for things that are needed for utility rate customers. So
Right.
about half of y'all are utility rate customers and the rest of y'all live on property. So you're essentially subsidizing it. So I think that's what Rosie was talking about earlier. We've tried to steer away from that. So
Well, I'm just trying to get to where we don't have to, you can call it, and this is every day you hear someone talking about it, in the normal citizen in any town that you go to, whether you call it a fee or whether you call it a tax, it's money out of their pocket. So I'm not for increasing fees as much as I'm not for increasing taxes too, because to me, that's just another tax. I know it's not called that, but it's money out of citizens' pockets. So I'm just trying to look at how we can lower any cost we can without having to do it through a fee or a tax. And I think this going to 40% lets us get around having to do any tax raising or fee raising. We can use some of this one-time supplemental request with this extra money, and still maintain the safety of the fund. I think we proved that over a course of a year, we could make up that money in revenues that are coming in now based on where it was 2 years ago when we adopted the 50%. So that's all for me.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Council, comments, questions? I'll say I'm not opposed to the 40%. I'd like to see what the proposal would be from the team regarding what that money would go towards. What's the breakout? How much would we use it initially? How much would we use at the 6-month mark? Let's kind of see how that gets allocated out. But what I really want to know is, you know, even at the 50%, what do we classify as general operating expenditures? That seems very nebulous, because right now, I mean, I know we take out some of the capital funds outlay stuff, but like Chief, within his budget, he has $800,000 for equipment. That's coming from his reoccurring money, that this could help cover that. But like that $800,000 in equipment, is that considered general operating expenditures?
Yes.
It is, but I don't view it like that. That's $800,000 in a one-time expenditure. So when I think right now about the 50%, essentially we're having, for Chief's $800,000 in equipment, we're having to set aside technically $1.2 million, because we also have to keep 50% of that in the fund balance. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. That's just where my mind goes to. So even if we set it at the 40%, what would we define as general operating expenditures? And what actually would that be at the 50% mark and the 40% mark? Because I think that 50% might even be a little bit higher based on how we're currently perceiving it than what it might need to be. So just kind of understanding how would we better define general operating expenditures, and then we can also look at the 40%.
Or perhaps we say 40% of the total expenditures for the year, or the approved balanced budget, whatever that number is. Rosie was showing me today that some cities actually do the fund balance as a percentage of the revenue, which seems odd to me because the revenues could change as the expenditures are a node, but I guess maybe that takes that particular question mark out. If we, rather than referring to general operating expenses, maybe we said 40% of the total budget.
Yeah, it's something to think about that's there. I'm not, like I said, I'm not opposed to it. I'd love to see what the actual recommendation would be, what the money would go towards. I think 40% does open up. It keeps a very healthy reserve balance that's going to continue to grow over time. As the budget grows, that will continue to grow, but that opens up quite a bit of money to do some things with. I do want to just make sure to recognize for all of us and for the public that the city manager and his team, they did propose a balanced budget that does not require a pull from the fund balance. And so while we're discussing this, there's a lot of other cities that are talking about raising taxes that are having to pull from their fund balance in order to just cover an operating deficit. Our budget does not need that. This is to do additional items on top of the balanced budget. So just want to make sure to continue to give kudos there, Dan, to you and the team. All right, council, any comments and or questions?
Is there a general consensus, I guess, maybe, Mayor?
Well, let's go Councilman Oplager.
Just real quick, my concern of going down to 40% is, and then looking into the crystal ball that nobody can, and predicting a disaster. That's the hard part, right? is when things go wrong, you need money in the bank. Now, I've got no problem really pulling and augmenting our budget with one-time purchases as we go, because as Councilman Bonner said, we could replace that money, but to drop it down that low, I don't know, that's just kind of scary to me. I'm not real sure. I would need a little more data, maybe like what you said, because it's just hard to predict the future and what could possibly go wrong. As I think of when we were talking, a couple of years ago, there was a train wreck in Ohio, and it went on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and the government, the local government was taxed with money, trying to come up with money. That's the kind of stuff we're looking at that can go wrong. So it's just, and then the other part of me is, I've been around Manvel a long time, and I know we came from a long ways from not having any money. No money, almost broke, right? And through solid capital stewardship and good budgeting planning, we've been able to achieve this, and it helps us get that credit rating that Manvel gets when we do go out for bonds and stuff. We get that really good interest rate, and we would not have been able to do that had we not had this solid practice. So to me, that's the other side of the coin that we got to consider. Is this. It can happen, but it makes me a little nervous. That's it.
Thank you, Councilman. Council, is anyone opposed to at least looking at some numbers at our next meeting? See what it might entail, see what an update to the policy would look like?
I look at the data.
Another thing to add that maybe a piece of information you could give to us at the next meeting is perhaps looking at the past storms, when we've actually tapped into this to use it for its purpose, like maybe a dollar amount? Because if we're having a storm like Burl that was horrible, and we're only using $1 million out of it, then, maybe that higher number is kind of a bit over the top. I'm just curious if we've ever gotten close to that, using all of it. I mean, have we ever even reached half of using it for a storm? Something to think about.
I like that. And maybe just count into it contingency and inflation. Inflationary costs project out over a 5-year period. Yeah. Like that. Any other council, anything new or additional to add, council?
On Councilman Rossi's point, I think we need to look at the numbers and plan. We got 75 to 80%, I don't remember the percentage. reimbursed by
75%.
FEMA, but I think we need to look at this number saying that we wouldn't get that to play it a little bit safer,
Well,
Councilman's point.
you have to think about the gross, because FEMA will take anywhere between a year to 2 years
Well, that's why I'm saying.
to reimburse.
I would like to think about these numbers when we look at them, if you're going to come up with a cost of leaving the FEMA reimbursement out of it, and saying, what would it have cost us if we didn't get that?
Hurricane Beryl would have cost us $934,000.
Right. Instead of 200,000 or 100,000, or whatever the number was. So I just want us to be a little bit conservative looking at the 40%. I agree, because I don't think we'll ever have 2 instances in a year. It hasn't never, but it could. So, we had 2 back-to-back, knock on wood. We don't have any wood up here except for my head, so.
Well,
But I just want us to look at those numbers thinking that we're not planning on reimbursement. I think it's a safer way to look at it.
Dan, you guys got some direction here? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Rosie. Appreciate you presenting this. Agenda item number 2, moving on, is consideration and possible action to provide direction to staff regarding whether to proceed with the amended land use assumptions and roadway capital improvements plan for the roadway impact fee study. Joe's.
Mayor and Council, this is a request from staff for direction regarding our roadway impact fee study. As you're aware, we are going through the process of adopting a possible roadway impact fee. We do not have that fee right now. Fries and Nichols have been helping us with that. We've been through some of the processes. We've had workshop with CIAC, and we've had a public hearing, which was closed at today's meeting. And during the whole process, what we've seen is there's been some instances which has resulted in some out-of-scope work from what was listed in the contract because of some of the changes that had to be done after receiving input from the CIC meetings. We were in the middle of our adoption of the major thoroughfare plan when this process has started, and some of the changes had an impact on that. And the consultant who's helping with us has requested for a project budget amendment, which is necessary to complete this roadway impact fee study. And therefore, we are bringing it in front of y'all to give us some feedback in terms of which way we should go in terms of the project budget amendment. And also, if you have any specific input in terms of which way y'all are aligned as far as adopting roadway impact fees concerned.
Thank you, Joe's. Is anybody from Fries and Nichols here tonight?
No, we don't have anybody at the meeting. We thought between me and Dan, we'll be able to help answer any questions.
Okay. Council, any comments or questions? Councilman Albert?
So am I to understand that they've already done the work?
So they've done majority of the work, but then some of the things had to change. And with the way the timeline is provided by state legislature, some of the things have to go back to the start, like this public hearing that we had about it. We may not be able to use it because some of the land use assumptions has changed, and we'll have to kind of kickstart the process again, go back to CIAC committee, have another public hearing for the land use assumption, and then have another public hearing for the report, and then finally adopt it. So the report has to be changed, as well as some of the meetings and in-person coming and presenting stuff, as well as the technical data analysis and stuff had to be done.
Because the way I read this, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they've already done some of the work that they're asking for additional money for, or they're asking additional money to do additional work?
Both. So some of the work they've done already, which according to them was outside of the contract, in anticipation that once this public hearing is done, they'll be able to move forward. Like at the last CIC meeting, if the land use assumptions were all approved, we would be able to move forward. However, that did not happen. Because of that, now there is extra work which is not yet done. So there are both pieces.
I don't take exception to paying for additional work to be done. I do take exception to being asked to pay for work that was done outside of a contracted scope. I mean, that's the reason for the scope.
So I would not say that it was outside of this. Well, yeah, in a way it is part of the scope, but they did that extra work assuming that there wouldn't be any more work and they would
There's
complete.
that word.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we approve the item, are we approving the amendment? Because the way this is worded, to me, we're not, the amendment, the item is to accept the recommendation of the letter, but I don't see the.
That's a different item.
Yeah.
This is item number 2.
So this is item number 2, which is to give staff direction.
Okay, gotcha. I did that 3 times while I looked at it too.
Dan, Joes, I have some questions, and then we'll go Mayor Pro Tem. So watching the CIAC meetings, listening to this discussion, it seemed like the CIAC was providing direction to the vendor because the vendor's report was misrepresenting numbers. The product that they produced was not accurate. So why should we have to pay for someone else's inaccuracies? Who wasn't here in person, who joined in over Zoom, was somewhat confrontational to somebody that we've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past few years. If they assumed that it was out of scope, I'm a project manager by trade. I get sign off for scope creep. I collect that money before I actually do the scope. Many of the things that they listed in their scope change are things that are exactly contemplated in the original scope. To me, this just feels like they're trying to get more money from us. Now, I could be way off, but I've reviewed the documents, I watched all the meetings. I know they weren't happy with the price to start, even though we're paying them to do our water and wastewater impact fees over $150,000. What am I missing here? Am I off in any of this? I could be.
You're not.
Okay. So my answer is no.
What
They
what
gotta
really
deliver.
sort of brought it to the forefront for me was, so the change order of 33,000, I mean, that's more than, I guess, the standard sort of threshold is 25% of a contract. Anything more than that, then, at least for me, you want to stand, take a step back. But then that puts it over, to Bobby's point, that puts it over $100,000, and that's not what we agreed to, right? So perhaps, there's a couple of questions floating around. Because we're looking at water and sewer impact fees right now, too. If there's a thought that we go with the full amount on water and sewer impact fees, are we going to assess these roadway impact fees either? I don't know if we have full buy-in on that just yet, quite frankly. So if there's a chance that we're not going to do them, do we have them continue the report, continue it as best they can with the money that they've got? I guess it would be nice to have a tidy report that's completed. I hate to just stop the effort in midstream and you didn't even get a chance to say if y'all want to actually assess these impact fees or not.
Well, ask a question with the in-house resources that we have. If we said, deliver us what you've got at the 75K, we'll take it in-house, do the rest in-house. Do we have the resources for that? Because to me, I'm a hard no to this 33,000. You said you would deliver us something, you deliver us something. For them trying to come back to a change order is maybe a sign of the times for the reevaluation of the relationship, unfortunately. I'm not happy about this.
Because you're talking a 45% increase.
Correct.
It's not insignificant.
And I believe very strongly in roadway impact fees. New development needs to pay for itself. We should not have Donald and Marianne Atkinson or Mayor Martin or William who pay property taxes to the city of Manvel have to carry the burden of new growth and the demand that it puts on our roadways. And without roadway impact fees, then we miss that opportunity to capture that up front. It's the same thing with water and wastewater impact fees. But do we have the in-house resources to do this?
Time-wise, I do not think we have, because with every single individual staff members that we have who has some remote exposure to roadway impact fee and how the modeling goes and all of that is tied up with responsibilities that'll lag behind.
Okay.
But Mayor, do we have the expertise, if they don't complete it, to answer any questions that we might have? And that's where I think we do. I think we have the expertise in-house to answer any questions if they didn't complete this any further than what their existing monies can take them. Could we answer questions? And I think that expertise probably exists here.
Yeah, we may be able to answer questions on what is included in the report once we get all the data that has been, that was used to put together the report.
So what I'll say, council, and then we'll open it up here further, my recommendation would be to stay firm with the original scope. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this is, like, my company, if we did work out of scope for a project, it would be bad form and bad relationally to go back to the clients after the fact and try to do a change order for it because we already did the work. We say for the sake of the relationship, we're going to swallow that cost. We're going to take that on. It is what it is. We need to do better in the future then. I don't like this as best business practices. And this is trying to take more taxpayer dollars for something that I would never do in my professional career. So that's where I stand on it. Mayor Pro Tem, or?
Well, this was supposed to be fixed cost to begin with, wasn't it? The whole question is whether or not it's outside of their scope.
So I believe the way it was envisioned was like there'll be so many meetings involved. You would have so many hours put in to do your research and get the data to come up with the numbers. But some of that changed. So the number of meetings they had to attend increased, and then they had to recalculate stuff a couple of times due to different reasons. And that's the basis for them.
I'm just like Councilman Albert and the mayor. I think their ask is way over where it should have been, percentage-wise. That's the point that's kind of rubbing me a little bit.
It's a not to exceed contract, not a lump sum. So it is a not to exceed number.
So I'm along with the mayor here. I can't vote to do that.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilwoman?
So you said that some of it is out of scope work that they've already performed, and then there's work that needs to be done, correct? So maybe it would be helpful to know how much of the $33,700 is work that hasn't been done yet and they're proposing. Because, like, I can, like just about everyone has said here, is that I can understand coming back and asking for things that has not been done. But if you've already completed it, and when you look at it under the out of scope that's been done, one of them is the fact that they went to a capital improvements advisory committee meeting. I guess it was only one in the contract, but they've attended two. So things like that, to me, I don't think that it's worth, like, giving any additional money. But if there's something that hasn't been done yet and we can give them a little something, I mean, it would just be helpful to know, to break down out that $33,000. What are they trying to allocate that money to?
Joe's, Dan, do you guys have any insight or perspective into what that $33,000 is going towards?
No, I mean, they broke it down in that, the scope of services amendment, but I don't see a dollar amount, with the different components like they had in the original contract. We could certainly ask for that. If you're open to, I think the direction right now is finish it with the 75,000 period. But if there's a sort of an asterisk with that, well, we can ask that.
Councilwoman?
I mean, I'm all for sending a message of finish it at the price that we had already arranged with them. I just was wondering, for that 33,000, what exactly were they allocating that to? Because if they've already done some of the work without even asking for approval, to me, that's on them. But the work that hasn't been done, if it's needed for us and we don't have the resources to do it ourselves, then it would make sense to see how much that costs. Like how much of that remaining would be for the things that haven't been done yet.
Yeah, we can definitely go back and ask for a nice itemized result.
And then if they don't want to, then,
Council, any opposition to that? I mean, maybe the recommendation to them too is council's willing to say no altogether, so they might even want to refine what their ask is. But you can say that the mayor is not happy at all. And I quote, yes.
Question.
Yes, Councilman Lance.
Maybe I'm looking at something wrong here, which is not unusual. So, executed roadway impact fee contract. That's the second item on there. Contract for professional services. Witness that, City of Manvel roadway impact fee program. And then you go down to scope of services, and it's wastewater.
No, you were doing the same thing, David.
No. He's right. I think there's a typo in that contract.
Is there?
Contract, sorry.
Maybe that's what drove me down the wrong rabbit hole, too.
Last thing we need is typos in contracts, trust me.
Yeah, that's a typo that's in there. The rest of the document is all about roadway impact. I think it's just a carryover from the initial part. Maybe it was mirroring the water wastewater, and that text got left. It references the attachment as water and wastewater, but rest of the contract, everything pertains to roadway.
Thank you, Joes.
Yeah, and here's running a quick analysis on it, Councilman Land, speaking to the contract. There's a section, I believe it's page 10, if I'm not mistaken, of the contract. Let me just scroll down to it. That even represents the last paragraph, changes. Clearly outlines the process for changes. Request changes in the scope of the services to be performed by the engineer under this contract. If they didn't follow this process, they now want to be compensated to cover the cost of performing the duties within this contract. Very clearly, it says right here that it shall be mutually agreed upon between the city and the engineer. So they performed it without seeking agreement. That's on them. But I think we've berated this enough. Dan, Joes, you guys have at least clear enough direction here? Cool. All right. Council, unless there's any other additional comments for that, we'll move on to agenda item number 3. Agenda item number 3, consideration and possible action to accept the CIAC recommendation letter on land use assumptions, capital improvements plan, and amendment to the water and the wastewater impact fee. We had a presentation earlier focusing specifically on the recommendation letter. I know we might have conversations at a later date on the actual fee itself and the structure for that. Any comments and/or questions regarding the recommendation letter? Councilman.
Okay, so now my question is appropriate. So is this just a formality saying, we're signing the certified letter return? Basically, we got your letter, thanks?
Yes, sir. Correct. This is just, we're accepting the letter that we charged them to do. And there are several things that we have to do by state law if we're going to actually assess impact fees. And so this is one of the steps. The next step after this is the public hearing, right, the first meeting in September, follow along with the ordinance, I think, at the second meeting in September, second reading of that ordinance in October. So we got basically at least three more times. We'll
So
talk about it.
we're just accepting the letter,
Just
not the
accepting it.
terms?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Dan, real quick, the representative that has been advising us from Freeze and Nichols on this is different than the roadway impact fees, is that correct?
Correct, yes, sir.
Who's been the one on this?
This one is Ishida.
Okay, she's done a fantastic job. Excellent work, very communicative, partnering with us, collaborative. Appreciate her work, appreciate CIAC's work, and making the recommendation. That's ultimately what we ask of them. Even though we may not agree with it, we do ask for the recommendation and their perspective and appreciate them giving that to us. So please let Ishida know that we appreciate her work up until this point. She's done a great job. Any additional comments and/or questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion for this agenda item?
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve from Councilman Albert. Do I have a second? We have a second from Councilwoman Roby Robinson. All those in favor? All those opposed? Every motion to accept the letter passes unanimously 7-0. Next agenda item, consideration and possible action to provide direction to staff on a request to amend the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 8, Animals regarding tethering, requested by Councilmember Lands and Mayor Pro Tem Bonner. Councilman Lands, we'll turn this one over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been wanting to bring this up for a while. I know we did change our ordinance on our animals a few years ago, outlawing chains. A dog cannot be on a chain. And we had the tether line in place where I believe it has to be 2 or 3 times the length of the animal. And it has to still have to have a shelter and water. My ask here for council is we consider banning tethering on animals. Now, let me specify, what I'm talking about is an animal that's in a yard and it's on a tether, 10, 15, 20 feet long, and he lives on that tether 24/7. Actually, I think it's cruel to the animal. I don't think it's the right way to, if you have an animal, I don't think personally, that's my opinion, I don't think it should be on a tether 24/7. Obviously, and speaking to our animal controls, you got to be careful how you word that, because walking a dog down a road, that's a tether. That's not what we're talking about here. I'm not even talking about, I would say, tethering an animal in your yard for 2 or 3, 4 hours a day while you're out there mowing your lawn or whatever else, but not a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week life for that animal. I'm opposed to that. And I'm opposed to small cages, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about tethering, one thing at a time. And I would hope the council would consider moving forward with this discussion and possible removing the ability for tethering in Manvel.
Thank you, Councilman. Mayor Pro Tem, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, initially when we spoke about this, I was 100%, I'm against having an animal that you have to keep on a chain, on a rope, on anything. My only concern here is the person that it's going to cause them to have to go build a fence, say. And I fight with that, because part of me says, well, if you're going to have a dog or an animal outside, you need to plan for that. And so it could cause some cost involved, but I think overall, I more look at the cruelty to the animal. I just think that's not the situation that animals should be put in. I think we need to be real careful if we decide to move forward with this, if the council agrees to it, that the wording is carefully worded and making sure that it's legal the way we set it up. Because I don't want to cause more work for animal control than they already have right now. I think we've changed policies over the last year to fix some really bad situations, and we seem to be, it seems to be better now. I think people have learned the policies and they're doing that. I don't think we're having as many dropped-off animals, which I don't know that any ordinance cured that. I just think maybe more people looking out maybe change that. But I think it's open to some discussion here about how we could move forward to get to the point that Councilman Lands is suggesting.
Thank you, Member Tim. Councilwoman?
I'm just concerned at how exactly would we monitor this? So whether or not someone had their dog on a tether for 5 hours versus, I don't know, like 12 hours, and they took them off, let them come in the house, then put them back on. And then what would be the repercussions of it? Are they getting a fine? Are we taking the dog away? I'm just wondering how exactly would we move? I mean, I guess that's what we're voting on, to give staff recommendation to find all that out. Okay.
Chief, you want to speak to some of this? And, a few years back, we actually implemented our tethering requirements or ordinance prior to the state doing it, and now the state mimics ours. So I think they looked at us as an example there. But we did put something in place, and this is to take the next step.
Well, I think it's actually backwards. I like the approach of them
That's what I was trying
following
to, Chief,
us.
you just nod and smile.
We can run with that.
Nod and smile.
But actually, the 87th legislature, they created the tethering law through the state. We came in after that. There was an ask through council that we create the tethering ordinance, which basically, if you look at the tethering ordinance we have, is actually the state law, except for the offense or the penalty section of it, which in the state law, the penalty section is, it's Class C misdemeanor, except in the offense Class B misdemeanor if the person has previously been convicted under this section. Our ordinance doesn't do that because we cannot enforce Class B under city code. That would take it to a county offense, which is a jailable offense. So that's the only difference between state law and our current ordinance. Now, if you look at the ordinance, it pretty much defines when you can have an animal on a tether, when you can't, what they have to have in place, so on and so forth. I'm going to use myself as a personal experience on this. Years ago, I fostered a dog out of our shelter. Took the dog home. I had an open backyard. I live on almost an acre lot, open backyard. I built a pen behind our house for the animal. I attached a 30-foot cable from the doghouse to a toiletry, put a 30-foot cable on him. When we were at home, we pulled him out of the pen, put him on the tether. He run and enjoyed life. Able to get on the back porch, sit by the back door with us, out of the weather, water, everything. Honestly, I didn't see anything wrong with it. The dog was a great dog. Dog had a great life there. At night, we put the dog up in the pen, put a fan on him, the whole works. It's all on how the person takes care of the animal is what we're concerned about, not whether they're chained up or tied up. Now, when you start talking about tethering, that could be multiple things, and I think that's where we have to be careful, like we said earlier, is that what we try to avoid are the dogs that are staked out in the yard with a 5-foot chain hooked to them to where all they can get in is a 55-gallon drum with a bowl of water beside them. If y'all remember back when we had the snowstorm in, 24? We actually had that situation. We were called out. We actually rescued, I think it was 17 dogs that were in that same situation in the snow. All they had was a 55-gallon drum with the end cut out with some hay in it. We actually rescued those dogs, seized the dogs. We charged the owner of the dogs with misdemeanor cruelty to animals. Honestly, I think that's the kind of tethering we need to focus on and look at are those types of tethering. Now, if they're on a run, we can actually look at the law and we can actually create specific times during the day, not at night. Something like that we can look at. But I did some research and I was going up doing like I normally do when we have something like this, and I started pulling up different cities. And Councilman Lands and I, we discussed this, and he mentioned that Alvin actually did away with their tethering ordinance. They kind of did, but then they didn't. There's still an ordinance on the books. But out of all the cities I looked at, about 75% of them don't even have a tethering ordinance. They don't even have anything on their books for this. They refer back to the state law, which allows the Class B misdemeanor. Now, that doesn't mean that if we have an ordinance and on the second conviction, we couldn't file it a Class B misdemeanor. So, I'm looking over my legal man here. We can still do that. It doesn't keep us from doing that. I'm in agreement with Councilman Bonner. We really need to look at what it's going to be. Some people might have these open areas that are poor fences that they just really can't keep their animals in. I think we just need to really look at the conditions that the animals are in, the conditions that they're being kept, if they have adequate food, adequate water, adequate shelter. You know, it's just, to me, we just need to really be very careful how we do this. I'm not disagreeing with anybody. I'm here at y'all's direction. Y'all tell me to do it, then we'll make it happen. It's just, I think we have to be very careful on how we do this.
Thank you, Chief. Council, comments, questions? Councilman Lands?
I like that setup. I do like that. What I see is we need in place teeth. If we see something out there that animals are not being taken care of properly, we have the power to say, hey, looky here. This right here says you can't do that, you know? So maybe if we can word in, I don't know, some inhumane, treatment of an animal. But personally, I think an animal on a lead for 24/7 is inhumane. But, coming off the leash, going in the house for the night, whatever, that's a totally different situation.
And that's exactly what we can look at. We can actually look at that, maybe during the day, they put the animal out on a leash to let the animal run and free, and at night they put them in a pen or something. That's absolutely something we can look at. We can try to set time limits, but like was said earlier, how do we set them time limits? It's not like a parked car where we go put a sticker on it that the car's been there for 48 hours. We have to look at the enforcement side of it as well. Now, when you're talking about teeth for the abuse of animals, we do have an ordinance when it comes to how to maintain and care for animals, but actually the teeth is in the state law. And I can tell you that the state law is very, very animal friendly, is a better way of putting it, because there's in the health and safety code, when you start looking at the abuse of animals and stuff like that, it gets very tight, and they really have some strong laws when it comes to animal abuse.
Okay. I think going forward, I would do some, I'm going to do some research. There's got to be some cities out there that we can look at. That's a reflection that do not allow tethers. And how do they go about implementing that? But anyhow, I'll have
Councilman Albert?
Yeah, I would agree. I'd like to see it come up with something. I would also lean towards agreeing with you on the time limit and stay away from it. Or not time limit, I'm sorry, time of day. Because I've got a little dog now that if I had to tether her, there are several times in the middle of the night she gets me up. And if I'm not allowed to put her out on the tether to let her do her thing, how am I just supposed to let her do it in the house? So, I think you wouldn't be able to do, I don't think you'd be able to do, can't do it during these hours. That's all I got.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
I just wanted to note, so I've never heard of this city or the county, but it's Ingleside, Texas. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they have a stricter tether law. What is it, close?
No.
Oh, okay.
I saw Rosie nodding.
It's down by Corpus.
They limit tethering to no more than 3 hours per 24-hour period, and then it bans tethering between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., and then within 500 feet of a school or during extreme weather below 32 degrees or storm warnings, et cetera, like that. So maybe not the 3 hours per 24-hour period, because I don't know how we would monitor that. But, even having a ban between the specific period, I feel like that would be easier to monitor versus a set hour limit and whatnot.
Thank you,
Maybe you might
Councilwoman.
have to
So
go
we'll go
outside.
with your dog.
Councilman Albert, and then we'll see if anybody has any additional items to add.
I just want to reiterate that there's a great example of they've limited it. Now, what do people in their community, if their dog has to go outside during those hours? You know, short of, I guess, me standing there with the dog on the leash, but, you know, if the dog normally goes out on its own on the tether humanely, like Chief Trailer discussed, then if you can't do it between 10 and 7, then that dog can't go outside between 10 and 7. I think that's unrealistic, too.
All right, well, I think let's do some additional research, and Chief, if you guys have, talking with our animal control officers, some recommended best practices here, you know, second offense, Class B misdemeanor, giving some more teeth, as Councilman Land's reference, I think taking a look at that and seeing what that might entail would be helpful. But Chief, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just went back and started looking at my documents that I was preparing for it, and some of the cities I looked at were Lake Jackson. Of course, I'm very familiar with that because I was over the animal control in Lake Jackson. They have a tying and staking ordinance that kind of mimics what we're talking about. City of Alvin, of course, they have their tethering ordinance. It's a little bit more stringent than the state law, what we're looking at. But, and this is as far as I got that day, but Pearland, Angleton, League City, and Sugar Land, they do not have tethering ordinance. Those are just some of the ones that I started pulling up and looking at. The Ingleside, I try to look around close by, but I think this is something that I can look at that might be able to point us in the right direction. And there's a possibility I could probably come up with something before the next meeting that we could put something together and just have some further discussion on.
Yeah, I think that works. Is there, because what I'm hearing is no one on council is opposed to looking at this?
No.
Open to it, considering it, discussing it further? Okay.
Yeah.
Councilman, Mayor Pro Tem, does that work for you guys? Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Councilman. If there's no additional comments on this item, we'll now move on to agenda item number 5, consideration and possible action to fill the vacancy on the Home Rule Charter Commission. Tammy, can you introduce this item for us?
So originally, each council member recommended somebody to be appointed to the board. Larry Acree was Harry's recommendation. Larry reached out and said that his schedule has been quite busy and he hasn't had the time to fully commit to the board and wanted to drop off for his position. So there's a couple options. That leaves a 10-member board, or you can appoint somebody to fulfill the rest of Larry's timeframe. So Harry didn't have anyone else in mind. The mayor had a few good recommendations of some individuals. Tonight, oh, I thought.
No, yeah, no,
I thought it was.
Mary Ann's mom.
It
was, we were doing
All right, disregard.
Well, Mayor Pro Tem, do you have anyone that would be interested?
I'm not opposed to moving forward with the 10-man board. I think at this point, they're already halfway through. I think that puts them a little behind because that person would have to catch up. So I'm not opposed to moving forward with the 10-man board.
Question for that, Tammy, is what happens if it's a tie vote?
So ultimately, the council is the final decision maker, no matter what that recommendation is. It's been a really good board in the sense of their communications and the topics that they've had discussion on. For the most part, they've kind of talked through their processes so far. So I can't imagine you're going to have a tie vote on something. You very well could, but again, at the end of the day, it could be a tie vote, and council is going to be the final decision maker on what goes on a ballot, and then of course the voters are the final.
All right.
I mean, have you had anybody that expressed interest at all?
Not necessarily expressed interest, but there are some good candidates that I didn't really think about that we could reach out to. Mayor, would you mind if I read those, or do you want to mention some of the ones that
I
popped
completely
up?
forgot who I sent in that email. So
Hold on just a second.
And these are people, council, that I did not reach out to at all. Just, hey, if we want to consider appointing one, then I was mentioning it to Harry, but Keith, I should have sent it to you. Mayor Pro Tem, if these are ones that any of them stand out to you, let's reach out to them to see. But I believe, they've had 3 meetings already?
Yeah.
They have their 4th this week. They have, 4 meetings left?
Possibly.
Possibly, yeah.
I just think they'd be behind the 8 ball a little bit.
Council, you guys wanted to see an 11-person member? I mean, do we have to, is it required to have 11?
So initially,
We're to
yes.
appoint 11.
Appoint 11, okay. So we appointed 11, okay.
But the city attorney's going, so.
I know, he's squinting his eyes there.
I honestly have a concern that, how would that work if there's a tie? Would they then be required to present us that item that was a tie as well as the items that?
So you're going to be presented with everything that they come up with, no matter whether there'll be a letter and it'll say which things came with the vote, which things. So you're going to be presented with that. For the most part, the things that passed the vote would be what the recommendation would be, whether or not to put it on a ballot. And then you guys can pick your own things even.
Wasn't a tie vote. A tie vote would be translated into there was no recommendation.
Yeah, I think that would be, at that point, it was a 5-5 split. Says, here's our report. We were unable to come to a decision, the majority on a recommendation for you.
Okay.
Or we just sequester them until they come up with a deal.
Like 12 angry
They have to eat Wendy's food until they're finished.
Here's what I would recommend, council. If you guys have anyone that you know may be interested, provide those names and contact information to Tammy. Tammy can ultimately work with Dan to get those to the Mayor Pro Tem, because it's technically the Mayor Pro Tem's appointment or recommendation. And then, Mayor Pro Tem, if there's someone that you'd like to formally reach out to and bring forward, then for integrity of the process.
Mayor, one small recommendation would be, we've had a lot of charter review commissions in the past with people that have gone through this process once and should or will be familiar with the charter wording, because they've been through it and probably had some of these same debates. If anybody that was from a previous one, that might be somebody to reach out to, because I think that would help with some of the catch-up stuff. But that's just a suggestion.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bobby.
I was just saying, you have the chair is here.
Oh, yeah, the chair, Miss Marianne is the chair. She's running a strict meeting. She doesn't allow anybody to talk over each other, so she's wrong with an iron fist. How's it going, Marianne? Is it going well for you guys?
We'll be satisfied enough to give you what we need. We think we're doing a very good job. Nobody said anything else, so we're gonna go with that. We've had good leadership, so, but if we have to have that many, then I actually like your idea about possibly reaching out to somebody who's been on the board before, even if it was years ago. Because we are so far into what we've discussed, and I'd like to keep that pace going.
Absolutely. Just to clarify, Larry's not gone. He's still here. He's just not a part of the commission anymore. Awesome.
Having watched all of the meetings except for one, I read the transcript on that one, but I think the panel that's looking into all this right now is not going to come up with a 5-5 split. I really think they're all on the same forward pattern, moving against everything, moving towards a final decision. So I don't see it as a big issue at all.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilwoman, did you have?
I went back and forth. I was going to say I'm completely fine with having the 10 people. It also made sense to reach out to someone who has already been on the board. However, if you need names, then I would like to propose Chelsea Lay to be on, to fill the vacancy on the Home Rule Charter Commission. I'm sure you have all her information already, so.
I do, and then we have a list of about 6 other people, so totally up to the council if you want to present that tonight or you want to go with Chelsea tonight, and I reach out to her to make sure before you appoint her that she's open to being able to commit to the meetings. we kind of set those meeting dates around the current board schedule. So we want to make sure that that would meet a new person's schedule as well.
She's on maternity leave, so she's free from work duties at this time.
Does she know you're signing up?
Yes.
Garrett's checking. He's like, does she know she's signing you up? Well, I think with that, Mayor Pro Tem, it's ultimately it's your spot. So I think about it. Let us know. Let Tammy know if you'd like to have an item on the next agenda. And then any two council members can request an item on the agenda as well. Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Any other items for number 5? Hearing none, we'll move on to mayor and council comments. Any council comments? Okay, hearing none. I do not have any. We have BCCA this Wednesday. Mr. Presidente, where's it this month?
We're going to Lake Jackson.
Lake Jackson.
City of Richwood.
City of Richwood and Lake Jackson. All right. We will now move on to, Tammy, did you have something?
Oh.
No, okay. We'll move on to the adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion to adjourn from the Mayor Pro Tem. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from the councilwoman. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.